After their first meeting with Kale Vor, the crew of the Odyssey returned to their ship, their minds filled with questions. The Zorathians were not what they had expected. Instead of attacking or enslaving them, Kale Vor had shown curiosity, a rare trait for a species known for its dominance. But this curiosity came with conditions. He wanted humanity to prove itself worthy of his attention. The humans knew this was an opportunity, but it was also a test, one that could determine the fate of Earth. Commander Daniel Carter gathered his team in the ship's briefing room. "We need to think carefully about how we handle this situation," he began. "Kale Vor has given us a chance to show him what humans are capable of. If we succeed, we might gain allies instead of enemies." Emily Ross nodded, her mind already racing with ideas. "He seemed interested in our adaptability and creativity. Maybe we can demonstrate those qualities by solving a problem they haven't been able to solve themselves." Ryan Keller crossed his arms, his skepticism showing clearly on his face. "And what if this is all just a trick? What if they're planning to use us and then discard us?" "It's possible," Daniel admitted. "But right now, we don't have many options. Running isn't going to save us. Fighting isn't going to save us. Our best chance is to play along, for now." Laura Bennett, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "I agree with Emily. If we can find something meaningful to contribute, it might earn us real respect, not just from Kale Vor, but from the rest of the Zorathians too." With the decision made, the crew prepared for another visit to the Zorathian flagship. This time they brought more than just words. They brought data. Emily had spent hours analyzing scans of the Zorathian ship during their last visit. She noticed patterns in their energy usage, subtle fluctuations that suggested inefficiencies in their systems. It wasn't much, but it was a starting point. When the humans arrived back on the Zorathian ship, they were greeted by Kale Vor once again. This time, he was accompanied by several other Zorathians, including a tall, heavily armored female named Varanix, who watched the humans with sharp, calculating eyes. Kale Vor gestured for them to follow him into a large chamber filled with glowing screens and floating holograms. It was clearly some kind of command center. "You said you wished to prove yourselves," Kale Vor stated, his tone neutral. "Explain." Emily stepped forward, clutching her tablet tightly. "During our previous visit, I observed your ship's energy systems. I believe there may be ways to improve their efficiency. Small adjustments could lead to significant gains in performance." Varanix let out a low growl, stepping closer to Emily. "You dare critique our technology? We are the strongest species in the galaxy." Emily flinched, but held her ground. "I'm not criticizing, I'm offering suggestions. Your systems are impressive, but even the best designs can be improved." Kale Vor raised a hand, silencing Varanix. "Continue." Encouraged, Emily explained her findings in detail. She pointed out areas where energy flow could be streamlined and suggested methods for reducing waste. As she spoke, Kale Vor listened intently, his glowing eyes narrowing as he processed her words. When she finished, he turned to one of his engineers, who quickly ran simulations based on her recommendations. To everyone's surprise, the results were promising. The proposed changes would indeed enhance the ship's performance. Kale Vor looked at Emily with newfound respect. "You are clever, human. Very well. You have earned my interest." But proving their worth didn't stop there. Kale Vor decided to test the humans further. He invited Daniel to participate in a simulated combat scenario, a virtual arena where participants fought using holographic weapons. The purpose was clear: to see if humans possessed the strength and courage to stand alongside the Zorathians. Daniel hesitated. He knew he couldn't match the Zorathians' raw power, but he also knew that refusing would make humanity appear weak. With a deep breath, he accepted the challenge. The simulation placed Daniel in a barren desert landscape, facing off against a towering Zorathian warrior. The creature moved with incredible speed and precision, swinging its massive weapon with ease. Daniel dodged and rolled, staying just out of reach. He realized early on that brute force wouldn't win this fight. Instead, he relied on agility and strategy, targeting weak points and exploiting gaps in his opponent's defenses. Though battered and bruised by the end, Daniel managed to hold his own long enough to impress Vor. When the simulation ended, the Zorathian leader approached him, his expression unreadable. "You lack the physical strength of my warriors, yet you do not yield. Why?" "Because giving up isn't in our nature," Daniel replied simply. "Humans may not be the strongest, but we don't give up easily. That's what makes us different." Vor nodded slowly. "Different, yes. Perhaps that is why you intrigue me." As the days passed, the relationship between the humans and the Zorathians grew more complex. Emily continued working with the Zorathian engineers, sharing insights and learning about their advanced technology. Laura found herself drawn to the medical bay, where she observed how the Zorathians treated injuries and illnesses. Their methods were brutal compared to human practices, but effective nonetheless. Ryan, however, remained wary. He spent most of his time tinkering with the shuttle, ensuring it was ready in case they needed to escape quickly. "I don't trust them," he muttered to Daniel one evening. "They're still predators. Just because they're curious about us doesn't mean they won't turn on us eventually." "I know," Daniel said quietly, "but for now, we have to keep playing the game. If we can build trust, maybe we can change the way they see us and the galaxy." Meanwhile, tensions began to rise among the Zorathians themselves. Not everyone shared Vor's fascination with humanity. Varanix, in particular, viewed the humans as a threat. She argued that allowing such a fragile species to gain influence could weaken the Zorathian Empire. Her protests grew louder, causing friction within the leadership. One night, while the humans were resting in their quarters, an alarm blared through the ship. They rushed to the bridge of the Odyssey, only to discover that a rogue faction of Zorathians had launched an attack on a nearby colony. The news shocked everyone, especially when they learned that the colony belonged to a peaceful race that had recently surrendered to the Zorathians. "This isn't right," Laura said angrily. "If the Zorathians keep acting like this, no one will ever trust them. Not even us." Daniel frowned, his mind racing. "We can't ignore this. If we want to build a real partnership, we need to address these kinds of actions. Otherwise, nothing will change." The next day, Daniel confronted Vor directly. "What happened to that colony?" he demanded. "Is this how you treat those who surrender to you?" Vor's expression darkened. "That faction does not speak for me. They act without my approval." "Then stop them," Daniel urged. "Show the galaxy that you're willing to protect others, not just conquer them." For a moment, Vor said nothing. Then, to everyone's surprise, he agreed. "Very well, I will deal with them. But understand this, human. Change will not come easily. My people have lived by conquest for generations. Trust must be earned on both sides." With that, Vor dispatched his forces to intercept the rogue faction. The humans watched anxiously as the battle unfolded, unsure of what the outcome would mean for their future. For the first time, they saw a glimpse of hope, that perhaps the Zorathians could evolve beyond their violent past. By the time the conflict ended, the humans realized they had taken a small but important step toward bridging the gap between their two species. They had challenged Vor to reconsider his ways, and he had listened. It wasn't a victory, but it was progress. As the Odyssey prepared to leave the Zorathian flagship, Daniel looked back at Vor one last time. "Thank you for giving us a chance," he said sincerely. Vor nodded, his glowing eyes reflecting a mixture of curiosity and determination. "Do not waste it, human. Prove to me that your kind is truly worth trusting." With those words echoing in their minds, the humans departed, knowing that their journey was far from over. The strongest species in the galaxy had met humans, and, though the road ahead would be difficult, the potential for change was undeniable. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless stars and planets. It was a place of wonder, mystery, and danger. For centuries, one species stood above all others as the most powerful force in existence, the Zorathians. They were strong, both physically and technologically. Their ships roamed the stars, conquering weaker civilizations and expanding their empire without mercy. No one dared to oppose them. The Zorathians believed they were destined to rule forever, but far away from their mighty fleets on a small blue planet called Earth, humanity lived quietly. Humans were not warriors like the Zorathians. They were explorers, dreamers, and thinkers. They had only recently begun venturing into space, eager to learn about the universe beyond their home. One such mission was led by Commander Daniel Carter. Aboard the Odyssey, a modest exploration vessel tasked with mapping uncharted regions of space. The Odyssey drifted silently through the void, its crew focused on their work. Among them was Lieutenant Emily Ross, a brilliant scientist who spent hours analyzing data and studying alien life forms. She loved her job because it allowed her to imagine possibilities that others might overlook. Then there was Chief Engineer Ryan Keller, a practical man who preferred fixing problems over pondering theories. Medic Laura Bennett completed the core team, always ready to patch up wounds or offer advice when tensions ran high. On this particular day, something unusual happened. The ship's sensors picked up an anomaly, a massive energy signature appearing nearby. At first, the crew thought it might be a natural phenomenon, like a collapsing star or a black hole. But as the readings became clearer, they realized it wasn't natural at all. A huge ship was emerging from hyperspace, larger than anything they had ever seen. Its surface gleamed with dark metal, jagged edges jutting out like claws. It radiated power and menace. "It's Zorathian," Emily whispered, staring at the screen in awe. Everyone knew the name. Stories of the Zorathians had spread across human settlements, tales of their invincible armies and merciless conquests. Meeting them was every explorer's nightmare, and yet here they were. Panic rippled through the crew. Some suggested fleeing immediately, hoping the Zorathians wouldn't notice their tiny ship. Others argued that running would make them look weak, inviting destruction. Daniel stood at the center of the bridge, his face calm but his mind racing. He knew the odds were against them. The Odyssey was no match for a Zorathian warship. Still, he refused to give up without trying. "Lieutenant Ross," Daniel said firmly, turning to Emily, "do we have any way to communicate with them?" Emily hesitated before nodding. "We can try, sir. Their language is complex, but our translation algorithms are advanced enough to handle basic exchanges." "Good. Prepare a message. Let's introduce ourselves and state our intentions peacefully." As Emily worked on crafting the message, Ryan approached Daniel. "Commander, are you sure about this? These guys don't exactly have a reputation for being friendly." "I'm aware of that, Keller," Daniel replied. "But if we run, we confirm their belief that humans are cowards. If we fight, we'll lose. Talking is our best shot." Ryan didn't look convinced, but he nodded and returned to his station. Moments later, Emily transmitted the message. It was simple and direct. "Greetings. We are humans from Earth, exploring this region of space. We mean no harm." For what felt like an eternity, there was silence. The crew held their breath, waiting for a response. Finally, the Zorathian ship responded. A deep, resonant voice boomed over the comms, speaking in halting but understandable words. "You are human?" "Yes," Emily answered quickly, her voice steady despite her nerves. "We represent humanity. Who are you?" "I am Kale Vor, leader of the Zorathian fleet. Why are you here?" Daniel stepped forward, taking control of the conversation. We seek knowledge and understanding. We did not expect to encounter your kind, but now that we have, we wish to speak further." There was another pause. The crew braced themselves for hostility, expecting the Zorathians to open fire at any moment. Instead, Kael'vor's voice returned, tinged with curiosity rather than anger. "Come aboard my vessel. We will discuss this." The order stunned everyone. The Zorathians were known for destroying ships on sight, not inviting strangers onto their flagship. Daniel exchanged glances with his crew before replying cautiously. "We accept your invitation. Thank you." Preparations began immediately. Daniel selected a small delegation to accompany him: Emily, whose scientific expertise could prove invaluable; Ryan, whose technical skills might help in case of trouble; and Laura, who carried medical supplies just in case. As they boarded a shuttle bound for the Zorathian ship, each member of the team wrestled with their own fears and hopes. When the shuttle docked, the humans stepped into a world unlike anything they had ever seen. The interior of the Zorathian ship was immense, its corridors stretching endlessly in all directions. The walls shimmered with a strange, pulsating light, and gravity seemed slightly heavier than on Earth. Towering figures moved past them, Zorathian, soldiers clad in sleek armor, their eyes glowing faintly beneath helmets. Kael'vor awaited them in a grand chamber, standing tall even among his own kind. His muscular frame was imposing, his presence commanding respect. Yet his expression was thoughtful, almost curious. He studied the humans carefully, noting their fragile bodies and simple clothing. To him, they seemed insignificant compared to his own people. But there was something else, a spark of determination in their eyes that intrigued him. "You are brave to come here," Kael'vor said after introductions were made. "Most would flee at the sight of us." "We came seeking peace," Daniel replied evenly, "not conflict." Kael'vor tilted his head, considering the statement. "Peace is rare in the galaxy. Strength rules all. Tell me, why should I spare?" "Your species?" Emily stepped forward, her voice clear and confident. "Because we offer something different. We may not be as strong or as advanced as you, but we are adaptable. We solve problems creatively. We strive to understand rather than dominate. Perhaps together, we can achieve more than either of us could alone." Her words hung in the air, daring Kael'vor to dismiss them. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then slowly, he nodded. "I see potential in your kind, but trust must be earned. Prove yourselves worthy, and perhaps we will reconsider our stance toward humanity." With that, the meeting ended. The humans returned to their shuttle, their minds buzzing with questions and possibilities. Had they truly found a way to coexist with the strongest species in the galaxy? Or had they simply delayed the inevitable? Back on the Odyssey, the crew debated what to do next. Some, like Ryan, remained skeptical, convinced the Zorathians would betray them sooner or later. Others, like Laura, clung to hope, believing that change was possible even among the most unlikely allies. Daniel listened to both sides, weighing their arguments carefully. One thing was certain: humanity's encounter with the Zorathians marked the beginning of a new chapter, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. Whether it would lead to harmony or chaos remained to be seen, but one thing was undeniable: nothing would ever be the same again. Months turned into years, and Earth continued to rebuild. The scars of the war were still visible: abandoned buildings, empty streets in once bustling neighborhoods, and memorials erected for those who had lost their lives. But the wounds were healing. Humanity had emerged from the conflict stronger and more united than ever before. The phrase "no" became a symbol of defiance and resilience, appearing on flags, posters, and even tattoos. It was a reminder that standing up for what was right sometimes meant saying no to power. Daniel Carter and Michelle Lewis remained at the heart of Earth's efforts to move forward. They weren't politicians or generals anymore. Instead, they worked as advisors, helping world leaders navigate the challenges of a post-war society. Their roles had shifted, but their influence was undeniable. Together, they championed programs aimed at fostering education, innovation, and diplomacy. They believed that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its weapons, but in its ability to adapt, learn, and grow. One day, Daniel received an unexpected visitor at his office in the UN headquarters. It was General Harper, the grizzled military leader who had played a key role during the battle against the Council. Harper hadn't aged well since the war. His hair was grayer, and his face bore new lines etched by stress. But his eyes still carried the same sharpness and determination. "Carter," Harper said, stepping inside without waiting to be invited. "Got a minute?" Daniel looked up from his computer screen, surprised to see the general. "Of course. What brings you here?" Harper pulled out a chair and sat down, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "We've been monitoring space traffic lately. Something unusual showed up." Daniel frowned, setting aside the papers he'd been reviewing. "Unusual how?" Harper hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "It's a ship, a big one. Not council tech. We're sure of that. It's different, advanced, and it's heading straight for Earth." A chill ran down Daniel's spine. "Do we know who it belongs to? Or why it's coming here?" Harper shook his head. "No idea. That's why I'm here. Thought you might want to take a look." Daniel nodded, already reaching for his phone to call Michelle. Whatever this ship was, it couldn't be ignored. Later that evening, Daniel and Michelle met in the command center where scientists and engineers were analyzing data transmitted from satellites tracking the mysterious vessel. On a large monitor, the ship appeared as a sleek, triangular craft glowing faintly with an iridescent light. Its design was unlike anything they had seen before. Not Council, not Valen, and certainly not human. "This doesn't match any known species technology," one of the scientists reported. "It's moving faster than anything we've encountered, yet it's not emitting any hostile signals." Michelle crossed her arms, studying the image closely. "Could it be explorers? Maybe another civilization looking to make contact?" Daniel shrugged. "Possibly. But after everything we've been through, we can't afford to assume the best. We need to prepare for all scenarios." As the hours passed, the ship drew closer to Earth, eventually entering orbit. Unlike the Council's arrival, which had been marked by intimidation and ultimatums, this ship remained silent. No broadcasts, no demands, just a steady presence watching from above. Finally, contact was made. A holographic projection appeared in the command center, startling everyone present. The figure was humanoid, though clearly alien. Its skin shimmered like liquid silver, and its eyes glowed with a soft golden light. Around its neck hung a pendant shaped like a spiral, the same emblem Kale, the Valen representative, had worn. "I am Arendor," the being said, its voice calm and melodic. "I come in peace," bearing a message from the Galactic Assembly. The room erupted in murmurs. The Galactic Assembly? No one had heard of such an organization. Daniel raised a hand to quiet the crowd before addressing the hologram. "What is the Galactic Assembly?" he asked. "And why have you come to Earth?" Arendor inclined its head slightly as if acknowledging the question's importance. The Galactic Assembly is a coalition of civilizations dedicated to maintaining balance and cooperation among species. For centuries, the Intergalactic Council has operated outside our jurisdiction, imposing its will through fear and domination. Your actions against them demonstrated courage and unity, qualities we value deeply. Michelle stepped forward, her curiosity piqued. "Why are you telling us this now? Why didn't you intervene when the Council attacked us?" Arendor's expression softened, though it was difficult to read emotions on its smooth, metallic features. Our laws prevent us from interfering directly in conflicts involving non-member species. However, your defiance changed things. By standing against the Council, you proved yourselves worthy of consideration for membership in the Assembly." The room fell silent as the weight of Arendor's words sank in. Membership in the Galactic Assembly would mean recognition on a galactic scale, a chance for humanity to step out of the shadows and join the broader community of intelligent life. But it also came with responsibilities and risks. "What does membership entail?" Daniel asked cautiously. Arendor explained that members of the Assembly shared resources, knowledge, and mutual protection. In return, they agreed to uphold certain principles: respect for sovereignty, peaceful resolution of disputes, and collaboration for the greater good. It sounded idealistic, almost too good to be true. "But what about the Council?" Michelle pressed. "Won't they see this as a threat?" Arendor's gaze hardened slightly. "The Council operates outside the law. They will resist, but they cannot stop progress. If humanity chooses to join us, you will have allies willing to stand with you." The decision wasn't easy. Over the next few days, world leaders debated the proposal extensively. Some argued that joining the Assembly was the logical next step, a way to ensure Earth's safety and prosperity. Others feared it might lead to entanglement in galactic politics, drawing humanity into conflicts far beyond its control. In the end, the choice was unanimous. Humanity accepted the invitation, becoming the newest member of the Galactic Assembly. The announcement was met with celebration across the planet. Fireworks lit up the night skies, and people gathered in public squares to cheer. For the first time, Earth felt like part of something larger, a family of civilizations working together toward a brighter future. As weeks turned into months, humanity began integrating into the Assembly. Delegates traveled to distant worlds, learning about other species' cultures, technologies, and histories. Scientists collaborated on projects that pushed the boundaries of understanding. Artists exchanged ideas, creating works that blended human creativity with alien perspectives. Slowly but surely, Earth found its place in the galaxy. Daniel and Michelle played crucial roles in this transition. They accompanied delegations to Assembly meetings, advocating for policies that prioritized cooperation and equality. Their experiences during the war gave them unique insights into the challenges faced by emerging civilizations, earning them respect among both humans and aliens. One evening, as they strolled through a park near the UN headquarters, Michelle paused to watch children playing under the fading sunlight. "Do you think we'll ever see the Council again?" she asked quietly. Daniel sighed, following her gaze. "Probably. They won't give up easily. But we're ready for them now. We've got allies, resources, and most importantly, each other." Michelle smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "You're right. No matter what happens, we'll face it together." Above them, stars twinkled in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the galaxy stretched endlessly, full of mysteries, waiting to be discovered. Humanity's journey was just beginning, and for the first time, it felt like they truly belonged. The battle was over, but the scars it left behind would take years to heal. Earth's skies, once filled with the fiery trails of enemy ships and explosions, now seemed eerily quiet. Smoke still rose from the ruins of cities, painting the horizon in shades of gray. The air carried the faint smell of ash and burnt metal, a constant reminder of what humanity had endured. Yet, amidst the destruction, there was a sense of triumph, a fragile but undeniable hope that things could get better. In the days following the Council's retreat, people began to emerge from their shelters. Families reunited, hugging each other tightly as tears streamed down their faces. Neighbors helped one another dig through rubble, searching for belongings or salvaging what they could. Strangers shared food and water, their differences forgotten in the face of shared hardship. It was a testament to humanity's resilience, a quality that had carried them through the darkest moments. At the United Nations headquarters, Daniel, Carter, and Michelle Lewis sat in the command center, exhausted but relieved. The room, which had been a hive of frantic activity just days before, was now calm. Screens displayed images of the aftermath, burnt-out buildings, makeshift refugee camps, and long lines of volunteers working tirelessly to rebuild. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his eyes heavy with fatigue. Michelle sat beside him, her hands wrapped around a cup of lukewarm coffee. "We did it," she said softly, breaking the silence. "Against all odds, we actually did it." Daniel nodded slowly, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Yeah, we did. But it wasn't just us. Everyone played a part. The soldiers, the scientists, the civilians, even the Vaylans. If it weren't for them, I don't think we'd be sitting here right now." Michelle glanced at Kyle, who stood quietly in the corner of the room. The Vaylan representative had remained by their side throughout the crisis, offering guidance and support when it mattered most. Though alien in appearance, Kale's presence had become a source of comfort for both Daniel and Michelle. "Thank you," Michelle said, turning to Kale. "Without your help, we wouldn't have stood a chance." Kale inclined its head, its shimmering form catching the light. "It was your courage that won the day, not ours. We merely provided tools. You chose how to use them." Daniel smiled faintly. "Still, we owe you everything. What happens now? Will you stay?" Kyle hesitated, its glowing eyes reflecting a mixture of sadness and resolve. "Our mission here is complete. The Council will not return, not for some time at least. But our own world requires our attention. We must go." Michelle felt a pang of disappointment, but understood. "Will we ever see you again?" "Perhaps," Kyle replied. "The galaxy is vast, and paths often cross unexpectedly. Until then, remember this: you are stronger than you know. Do not let fear dictate your future." With those words, Kyle turned and walked toward the exit. As the door closed behind the Vaylan representative, an unspoken bond remained, a promise that humanity was no longer alone in the universe. In the weeks that followed, Earth began the long process of rebuilding. Governments worked together to allocate resources, prioritizing areas hit hardest by the attack. Engineers and architects collaborated on designs for new cities, incorporating lessons learned from the battle. Schools reopened, their classrooms filled with children eager to learn about the war and the heroes who had fought it. Stories of bravery spread like wildfire, inspiring generations to come. Daniel and Michelle became symbols of humanity's defiance. Their names were spoken with reverence, their faces appearing on news broadcasts and magazine covers around the world. Yet neither sought fame or recognition. They continued working quietly behind the scenes, helping to develop technologies that would ensure Earth's safety in the future. One afternoon, as they walked through the streets of Washington, D.C., they noticed something unusual. A mural had been painted on the side of a crumbling building. It depicted Earth surrounded by stars, with the word "No" written boldly across the center. Beneath it, smaller words read, "Courage defines us." People stopped to admire the artwork, taking photos and discussing its meaning. "That's us," Michelle said, pointing at the mural. Her voice was filled with awe. "That's what we stood for." Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. "I never thought a single word could mean so much." "It wasn't just the word," Michelle replied. "It was what it represented: unity, determination, hope." As they stood there, watching people interact with the mural, a young girl approached them. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old, her hair tied back in pigtails. In her hand, she held a piece of paper. "Are you Daniel and Michelle?" she asked shyly. They exchanged a glance before nodding. "Yes, we are," Michelle said gently. "What's your name?" "Lila," the girl replied, holding out the paper. "I drew this for you. Thank you for saving us." Daniel knelt down to take the drawing. It showed two figures standing side by side, surrounded by stars. One figure held a shield, while the other raised a fist in defiance. At the top of the page, the word "No" was written in bold letters. Tears welled up in Daniel's eyes as he looked at the picture. "This is amazing." "Thank you, Lila." The girl beamed, then ran off to join her friends. Michelle placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder, her own eyes glistening. "That's why we did it," she said softly. "For moments like this." Months passed, and life on Earth began to stabilize. The threat of the Council lingered in the background, a sobering reminder that peace was fragile. But humanity had changed. The war had forced people to confront their fears and band together in ways they never imagined possible. Nations that had once been divided now worked as allies, sharing knowledge and resources. Scientists pushed the boundaries of innovation, driven by the belief that Earth deserved a place among the stars. One evening, Daniel and Michelle found themselves back in the observation room where they had spent countless hours during the crisis. The city below sparkled with lights, a stark contrast to the darkness that had once enveloped it. Stars twinkled above, their beauty undiminished by the chaos that had unfolded beneath them. "What do you think the future holds?" Michelle asked, leaning against the railing. Daniel shrugged, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I don't know. Maybe the Council will try again, or maybe we'll find ourselves facing new challenges. Either way, I think we're ready." Michelle nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "We proved something important, that humanity isn't just about surviving. It's about thriving, about choosing to stand tall, even when the odds are against us." "You're right," Daniel said, his voice steady. "And if anyone tries to take that away from us again, they'll regret it." They stood there for a while, gazing at the stars. For the first time in months, they allowed themselves to feel a sense of peace. The road ahead would be difficult, but they knew humanity had the strength to face whatever came next. Far above, in the depths of space, the Council's fleet regrouped. Zorath paced the bridge of his repaired flagship, his glowing eyes narrowed in thought. He had underestimated humanity, and the consequences of that mistake weighed heavily on him. Yet deep down, he couldn't deny a grudging respect for the young species that had dared to defy him. "They will rise again," Zorath muttered to himself, his voice low. "Stronger than before. Perhaps it is time we reconsider our approach." For now, the galaxy was silent. But somewhere, amid the endless expanse of stars, the seeds of change had been planted, and humanity, once an insignificant speck in the cosmos, had taken its first steps toward becoming something greater. The final battle was inevitable. Everyone knew it, though no one dared to say it aloud. The Council's ship still loomed above Earth, casting its shadow over the planet like a storm cloud refusing to pass. Below, humanity prepared for the fight of their lives. Streets once filled with panic now buzzed with purpose. Factories churned out weapons and supplies at an unprecedented rate. Soldiers trained tirelessly, their faces hardened by determination. Civilians volunteered in droves, offering whatever skills they had to support the cause. Humanity was ready, or as ready as it could be. Daniel Carter spent most of his time in the command center, overseeing the integration of Valon technology into Earth's defenses. His lab was a hive of activity, with engineers and scientists working around the clock to finalize the upgrades. The new weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever built. Sleek and compact, they pulsed with energy that glowed faintly blue. stark contrast to the clunky machinery humans were accustomed to. The cloaking devices, meanwhile, shimmered like heat waves before disappearing entirely, rendering anything beneath them invisible to enemy sensors. Despite the progress, Daniel couldn't shake the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Every decision he made could mean the difference between victory and annihilation. He barely slept, surviving on coffee and adrenaline. Michelle Lewis noticed the toll it was taking on him. She often visited the lab, bringing food or simply sitting quietly while he worked. Her presence was a small but vital source of comfort. "You can't carry all of this alone," she told him one evening as they sat together in the dimly lit room. "You've done more than anyone could ask. Let the others share the burden." Daniel sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "It's not just about me, Michelle. If we mess this up, billions of lives are at stake. I can't afford to fail." Michelle placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "And you won't. You've got the smartest minds on the planet and beyond working with you. Trust them. Trust yourself." Her words helped, if only a little. Daniel nodded, forcing himself to take a deep breath. For the first time in days, he allowed himself a moment of rest. Meanwhile, Kyle remained a constant presence in the command center. The Valen representative moved among the humans with quiet grace, offering guidance whenever needed. Though alien, in appearance, Kale's actions spoke of deep empathy and respect. It was clear that the Valons saw something special in humanity, a spark of potential worth protecting. As the days passed, reports began flooding in from satellites monitoring the Council's ship. Something was changing. The massive vessel, which had remained motionless for weeks, now showed signs of activity. Lights flickered across its surface, and smaller ships detached from its hull, forming a fleet that orbited Earth like a swarm of bees. The message was clear. The Council was preparing to strike. When the news reached the command center, tensions spiked. Military leaders gathered around the main table, poring over maps and simulations. Daniel and Michelle joined them, their expressions grim. They knew the attack would come soon, but when and where remained uncertain. "We need to anticipate their strategy," said General Harper, a grizzled veteran who had taken charge of Earth's defense forces. "If they're sending multiple ships, they'll likely target key locations, cities, military bases, communication hubs. They'll also try to disable our defenses first," added Commander Rivera, a sharp-eyed officer known for her tactical expertise. "We should focus on protecting our strongest assets, the weapons systems and cloaking devices." Daniel raised a hand, drawing everyone's attention. "There's another factor to consider. Their shields. If we can disrupt those, even temporarily, we might have a chance to damage their ships." Michelle nodded in agreement. "We've been testing pulse generators designed to interfere with their energy signatures. If we deploy them strategically, we could create openings in their defenses." The group quickly devised a plan. Earth's forces would divide into 3 teams. One would defend major cities, using cloaking devices to conceal civilians and essential infrastructure. Another would protect the command center and other critical facilities. The third would launch a counteroffensive, targeting the Council's fleet with the upgraded weapons and pulse generators. It was a risky strategy, but it was the best they had. As preparations continued, Michelle took on the role of rallying the troops. She traveled from base to base, delivering speeches that inspired courage and unity. Her words resonated deeply with soldiers and volunteers alike. She reminded them why they were fighting, not just for survival, but for freedom, dignity, and the right to shape their own destiny. "History will remember this moment," she told a crowd of soldiers gathered in a makeshift hangar. "Not because of what the Council did, but because of what we chose to do. We stood up. We said no. And now we will show them what humanity is truly capable of." Her speech was met with cheers and applause, lifting spirits that had been weighed down by fear. Even General Harper, who rarely showed emotion, gave her a nod of approval. Finally, the day arrived. Early in the morning, alarms blared across the planet as the Council's fleet descended into Earth's atmosphere. The ships were sleek and menacing, their surfaces gleaming with an unnatural light. As they approached, beams of energy shot out, striking designated targets with precision. Cities erupted in flames, and skies turned red with smoke and fire. But humanity was ready. Cloaked bunkers protected civilians, while hidden weapon emplacements unleashed torrents of energy against the invaders. The pulse generators, deployed at strategic points, disrupted the Council's shields, creating brief but crucial opportunities for counterattacks. Earth's forces fought valiantly, their newfound technology giving them an edge they desperately needed. In the command center, Daniel monitored the battle with bated breath. Screens displayed live feeds from the front lines, showing chaotic scenes of destruction and resistance. Despite the odds, humanity was holding its ground. But Daniel knew the real test was yet to come. The Council's flagship remained untouched, hovering above the fray like a predator observing its prey. Zorath's voice crackled over the comms, cold and mocking. "Impressive, humans. But your efforts are futile. You cannot win." Daniel clenched his fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. He turned to Michelle, who stood beside him, her expression resolute. "We need to take out that ship," he said. "If we can disable it, the rest of the fleet will fall apart." Michelle nodded. "Do you have a plan?" Daniel hesitated, then began sketching a diagram on a nearby tablet. "We use the pulse generators to create a concentrated energy surge. If we aim it directly at the flagship's core, we might be able to overload its systems." "It's dangerous," Michelle warned. "If it doesn't work, we'll lose our best shot." "It's the only shot we've got," Daniel replied firmly. With no time to waste, the team sprang into action. A squad of pilots volunteered to lead the mission, flying modified fighters equipped with the pulse generators. Among them was Captain Rachel Morgan, a fearless pilot with years of combat experience. She led the charge, her ship darting through enemy fire as she closed in on the flagship. Back in the command center, Daniel and Michelle watched anxiously as the fighters approached their target. The flagship's defenses were formidable, unleashing waves of energy that threatened to obliterate the attackers. But the pulse generators worked as intended, creating gaps in the shields that allowed the fighters to slip through. Finally, Rachel's ship reached the flagship's core. With a steady hand, she activated the generator, releasing a burst of energy that surged toward the heart of the enemy vessel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deafening roar, the flagship shuddered. Violently, its lights flickered and died, and the massive ship began to drift, powerless. Cheers erupted in the command center as the remaining Council ships faltered, their coordination crumbling without the flagship's guidance. Earth's forces seized the opportunity, launching a final assault that drove the invaders back into space. As the dust settled, the world held its breath. The Council had retreated, for now. Humanity had won, but the cost was immense. Cities lay in ruins and countless lives had been lost. Yet, amidst the devastation, there was hope. For the first time, humanity had proven itself worthy of standing among the stars. Daniel and Michelle stood side by side, gazing at the horizon. The sky was clearing, revealing the first hints of dawn. "We did it," Michelle whispered, her voice filled with awe. Daniel nodded, a weary smile tugging at his lips. "Yeah, we did." The Council's response came without warning. It wasn't a message broadcast across Earth's communication channels this time. Instead, the massive starship in orbit emitted a low, pulsating hum that resonated through the atmosphere. The sound was eerie, almost alive, as if the ship itself was breathing. People around the world stopped what they were doing to listen. Some covered their ears, while others stared skyward in awe. Moments later, the hum faded, and a holographic image appeared above every major city on Earth. The figure was tall, its body encased in shimmering armor that seemed to shift colors with each movement. Its face was hidden behind a mask, but its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. This was Zorath, the leader of the Intergalactic Council. His voice boomed like thunder, reverberating in the minds of everyone who heard it. "Humans," he began, his tone cold and commanding. "You have made your choice. You have defied the will of the Council, a decision no lesser species has dared to make. Your insolence is intriguing." The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Intriguing. Not angry or offended, but curious. Daniel Carter and Michelle Lewis watched the transmission from the UN headquarters, their faces tense with anticipation. Neither of them had expected this reaction. Zorath continued, pacing slowly within the hologram as though addressing a crowded chamber. "For centuries we have ruled the galaxy unchallenged. Tributes flow freely from those who understand their place. Yet here you stand, a young and insignificant race, refusing to bow. Why? What makes you believe you are worthy of defiance?" Zorath paused, as if waiting for an answer, though no one dared to speak. Across the planet, billions held their breath, unsure of what would come next. Finally, he spoke again, his voice softer but no less menacing. "Perhaps you think yourselves clever. Perhaps you believe your newfound allies, the Veilons, will protect you. But know this, the Veilons are weak. Their rebellion against us failed long ago, and they are nothing more than shadows now. Do not mistake their interference for strength." Daniel's heart sank at the mention of the Veilons. He and Michelle exchanged a glance, both thinking the same thing. How did the Council know about the mysterious message? Had they intercepted it? Or was it all a bluff? Zorath stepped closer to the edge of the hologram, his glowing eyes piercing through the screen. "Your no has intrigued us humans, but intrigue alone cannot save you. Prove your worth or perish." With that, the hologram vanished, leaving the skies empty once more. Silence fell over the world as people processed what they had just witnessed. The Council's words were cryptic, almost taunting, yet they carried an undeniable threat. Humanity had been given a challenge, but the stakes were higher than ever. Inside the command center, chaos erupted. Military leaders shouted orders, scrambling to prepare for whatever might come next. Scientists huddled around monitors, analyzing every detail of the transmission. Diplomats argued over whether to respond or stay silent. Amid the commotion, Daniel and Michelle tried to piece together what Zorath's words meant. "What does he mean by prove your worth?" Michelle asked, her voice tinged with frustration. "Is he giving us another chance? Or is this some kind of test?" Daniel shook his head, his brow furrowed in thought. "I don't think it's that simple. He's playing with us, trying to gauge our resolve. If we act too aggressively, he'll see it as a provocation. If we hesitate, he'll take it as weakness." Michelle nodded grimly. "So what do we do? Sit here and wait for him to strike?" "No," Daniel said firmly. "We fight back, but not in the way he expects. We need to show him that humanity isn't just about brute force. We're resourceful, adaptable, and determined. That's what sets us apart." His words sparked an idea in Michelle's mind. She turned to him, her eyes lighting up with determination. "What if we use this opportunity to unite everyone, not just governments, but ordinary people? Let's remind the world why we said no in the first place." Together, they devised a plan. Over the next few hours, Michelle worked tirelessly to rally global support. She delivered impassioned speeches via live broadcasts, urging citizens to stand together in the face of adversity. She highlighted stories of courage and resilience, showcasing individuals who had gone above and beyond to help their communities. During the crisis, farmers donating food, engineers volunteering to build defenses, teachers comforting frightened children, all these acts of kindness painted a picture of humanity's true strength. Meanwhile, Daniel focused on finding a technological edge. Using data gathered from the Council's previous transmissions, he and his team identified subtle patterns in their energy signatures. These patterns suggested vulnerabilities in the Council's shields, weak points that could potentially be exploited. Armed with this knowledge, Earth's scientists worked around the clock to develop countermeasures. They modified existing weapons systems and created new tools designed specifically to target the Council's technology. As the days passed, the atmosphere on Earth shifted. Fear gave way to determination. Communities came together, sharing resources and ideas. Factories ramped up production, churning out supplies faster than anyone thought possible. Even nations that had historically been at odds set aside their differences, pooling their strengths for the greater good. For the first time in history, humanity truly felt united. Then, something remarkable happened. Another signal arrived, from the Veilans. This time, it wasn't cryptic or vague. It was clear and direct. A sleek, silver ship descended into Earth's orbit, dwarfed by the Council's vessel, but radiating an aura of quiet power. Its emblem, a swirling spiral, shone brightly on its hull. When the ship landed near the UN headquarters, a single figure emerged. The being introduced itself as Kyle, a representative of the Veilans. Unlike the imposing figure of Zorath, Kyle was slender and graceful, its skin shimmering like liquid metal. Its voice was soft yet firm, carrying an air of wisdom far beyond human comprehension. "We have watched your struggle," Kyle said, addressing the assembled leaders. "Your defiance has inspired us. Long ago, we too stood where you stand now, facing the tyranny of the Council. Though we failed, your courage gives us hope. We offer our assistance, not out of pity, but out of respect." The room erupted in murmurs of disbelief and excitement. The Veilans were real, and they were willing to help. Kyle explained that their technology was vastly superior to anything Earth currently possessed. By combining their knowledge with humanity's ingenuity, they could create a defense system capable of matching the Council's power. Over the following days, Kyle worked closely with Daniel and his team, sharing advanced blueprints and techniques. The collaboration was unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. Together, they developed weapons that could pierce the Council's shields, communication devices that operated on frequencies undetectable by the enemy, and even cloaking technology to conceal key locations. But the alliance went beyond technology. Kale also shared strategic insights, teaching Earth's military leaders how to anticipate the Council's moves and exploit their weaknesses. Under Kale's guidance, humanity transformed from a scattered, frightened species into a cohesive, formidable force. Back in the streets, people celebrated the arrival of the Veilans. News of their support spread rapidly, reigniting hope across the globe. Murals depicting Kale alongside human figures began appearing on walls, symbolizing the unity between two races fighting for freedom. Songs and poems were written in honor of the partnership, capturing the spirit of resistance that now defined humanity. Yet despite the progress, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Every day that passed brought them closer to the inevitable confrontation with the Council. Zorath's words echoed in his mind. "Prove your worth or perish." What exactly did the Council want? And how far were they willing to go to crush humanity's defiance? One night, as he sat alone in his lab, staring at the schematics of their latest weapon, Michelle joined him. She placed a hand on his shoulder, her presence a comforting anchor in the storm of uncertainty. "We've done everything we can," she said gently. "Whatever happens next, we'll face it together." Daniel looked at her, gratitude swelling in his chest. "You're right. We've pushed ourselves farther than anyone thought possible. If this is where it ends, at least we'll know we gave it everything." Michelle smiled, though her eyes betrayed a hint of sadness. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Unbeknownst to them, the Council was watching. Far above Earth, aboard their colossal ship, Zorath observed the preparations below with growing interest. Humanity's resilience intrigued him, but it also unsettled him. Never before had a lesser species shown such tenacity. As he contemplated his next move, one thing became clear. The final battle was drawing near,